The Intellectual Gentlemen's Club.
Gather around, ladies and gentlemen. We have an adventure tale today. Got Chuck Earl back on the podcast. He came along to co-host. And Ian Overton is our guest. We're going to talk about an article on Cracked, 8 things nobody tells you about climbing a mountain. Ian discusses about his journey to Nanga Parbat in the winter. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. If you'd be so kind to subscribe to us, greatly appreciate it. You can check out our website, intellectualgentlemensclub.com. We're on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Google Plus, the whole thing. Check out the website. That's the main hub. All the previous podcasts are available on there. There's some old blogs. And you can check out our sponsorship page. If you click the support tab, it'll give you our links to Amazon, Audible, and Onnit.com products. Anything you do within that portal click gives us a little cut on top. Doesn't cost you anything additional. Just takes off their advertising dollars. Works out really well. This is a longer episode, so I'm going to get right into it. I hope you guys take as much out of it as I did. I found it to be quite a journey. Keep it short and sweet, and we'll jump right into the interview. I'm Jason Abbott, and welcome to the IGC. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is episode 42. Chuck Earl is back in action, returning from episode 6. He was on with Jamie Van Bueller. We went over some photography, some mountain climbing, adventure type of stuff. Chuck, welcome back.
Hey, thanks, Jason. It's nice to meet you, Ian.
Pleasure to meet you as well.
Well, let me introduce the guest here. We have Ian Overton. Ian is a climber. Caught his article on Cracked. This is going back a couple weeks ago, and I found it riveting. I just had to kind of reach out and find you, Ian. Welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you. The Cracked article has been, I've gotten a really good response from it, which is interesting. I didn't expect much at all, to be honest. So, thanks for reaching out. Yeah, well, it's a crazy journey. I've always loved adventure tales. Those are the books I really like to read, the movies I like to watch. Hearing stories like this, and it's just riveting type of stuff. So, long story short, this article here is about you and 2 others going to the Himalayas to climb Nanga Parbat. And you guys kind of get your ass kicked a little bit, didn't you? Yeah, we got handed, that's for sure. We got pretty wrecked, and there's a lot that went into why that happened. Some of it we didn't touch on in the article just because it's not as interesting as the crevasse falls and the -30 and all of that. There's a lot of basics around, like, infrastructure problems and this, that, and the other that lead to the degradation of the expedition.
When did you guys decide to go? Like, when was that all planned in action? How long did that take to get all together? I mean, going to the Himalayas to climb, it's, I used to live in Colorado. Chuck lives in Colorado. Ian, you live in Colorado. So we're all familiar with 14ers. Very near and dear to mine and Chuck's heart, I know. Ian, are you a climber of the 14ers out there? I'm sure, right?
Of course. Of
course, right. So going from anywhere in Colorado to the Himalayas is a much different challenge. It's not like a day trip. You don't summit by noon, that kind of stuff. So what did it take to get over there, and how did this idea all get started?
Well, in the long run, the way that this happened is in 2008, I went up on this hitchhiking adventure where I hitched from Ireland to Romania and back. And along the way, I met this guy, David Klein, who is kind of a global vagabond, spiritual, psychedelic, mountaineering playboy.
Sounds awesome.
For lack of a better term. He's a fun guy. and life is never boring with him. Anyway, we had some fun when I was out there, and we stayed in touch. He called me up in January of 2012 and kind of gave me a bit of an invite to go to Everest with him. Unfortunately, it worked out that there were other people that were a bit more suited for the base camp manager task, and they went with him. But from there, we started thinking about, well, maybe we'll go do Denali, which is nothing to sneeze at.
No.
And when he got back from Everest, he
Did
called
he
me up
summit?
and said, "What? No, he did not. David has quite the climbing record, as does Zoli, the other guy that we went with, and we'll talk about him in a minute.
Mm-hmm.
David has several 8,000 meter peaks. He spent winters on Denali, and he holds, if I remember correctly, he holds the altitude record for Hungarians on Everest without supplemental oxygen.
Wow.
He's been with 200 meters of the summit. And he's been out there several times, typically on the north side of the mountain, the Tibetan side. Well, he gets back, and he says, well, let's do Manaslu, another 8,000 meters. It's the 8th tallest on the planet, and it's in Nepal. It's considered an achievable mountain to climb for your first 8,000 meter peak.
How many 8,000 meter peaks are there out there? I mean, there's not many.
There's 14.
14.
Everest being the most notorious, Annapurna being the most deadly. And then Nanga Parbat sits right between Annapurna and K2 on the kill factor. And they're all located in Nepal, on the Nepalese border with China and Pakistan, in the Himalaya range and in the Baltoro, or in the Karakorums, I should say. But we get this invite to go to Manaslu, and we jump at the chance. I am working as an ambulance driver in Colorado Springs, more specific, a wheelchair driver. I'm an EMT.
Okay.
And so I was trying to manage these calls and figure out how I'm going to pay for this thing while I'm running my job. And it comes down to it that we can't find the sponsorship, and we don't have enough money to pay out of pocket for it. So David, Zoli, and I are talking about maybe we'll do something else sometime soon. And the idea comes up. I'm pretty sure it was Zoli who said, well, let's do Nanga Parbat in the winter.
Yeah, no big deal, right?
And the first thing that ran through my mind was, hell no.
Sounds suggestion.
What's
Pardon?
that, Chuck?
Sounds like a great suggestion.
Exactly, right? It's but about that same time, I got a call in on our radio to pick up a frequent flyer, somebody that winds up using an ambulance a lot for maybe not necessary reasons, and decided that, yeah, I need to do something interesting and fun. It's a big jump from the kind of climbing I've been doing, but sure, why not? Let's give it a go, and maybe on the off chance we'll make history. So that was in, I want to say, August or September of 2012. Now this has turned into essentially a shotgun wedding. We've got 3 months to plan an expedition to a mountain that's never been climbed before in the winter, in an area that is known for sometimes hostile population to Westerners.
Near Pakistan, really?
You know, go figure. That being said, well, we can get into the people later, but we had a great time meeting people out there.
Oh, sure, yeah.
So it's immediately you get going, you start searching for sponsors because we've got 3 months to do this thing. Several companies were gracious enough to look at my rather pathetic climbing resume and go, yeah, sure, we'll give you some gear.
So Ian,
Yes?
explain a little bit about how you get sponsors. How does that work?
One is you need to be you need to be at the top of your game, or approaching it, or show potential. A lot of these companies like Mountain Hardware or Camp or Princeton Tech or
North
whoever,
Face or whatever.
Yeah, they're going to get upwards of 100 sponsorship requests a day. So you need something that they can go, yeah, we can get behind that. So either you need to be Uli Steck or Alex Honnold or Tommy Caldwell, or you need to be like doing something insane that will get some kind of coverage, because this is sponsorships is marketing opportunity for these companies.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to show yourself that you're able to put yourself out there, not only as a climber but also in the public eye. Yeah. So I presented it as I'm going with two very skilled Hungarian climbers. And Eastern European climbers are known for their resilience in high altitude situations and in climbing in general. The alpinist Conrad Anker said something to the tune of climbers from Eastern Europe have a habit of eating, suffering, and shitting gravel. They're just made of steel. It's something along those lines when I saw him in Breckenridge a few years ago. So I'm going out with these two well-known climbers from Hungary. I'm willing to go out, present this thing when I get back, and say how much you guys helped me out. And I can't thank you enough. And some of them did. And I thank them more than I can really say. They made that whole thing happen.
So how long are you guys gone on an expedition? Are we talking a 3-month tour or 1 month? How long is this trip planning on taking?
So it depends on what you're doing. But our expedition, we said that we'd be able to stay up through. With a winter expedition, you have the winter season window. So you're December 21st until, technically, I want to say, what is the equinox? This March 21st or something around there?
Sounds about right. I'm not sure. Chuck, do you know?
Yeah, that's correct. It's March 21st.
Cool.
Yeah. So you want to stay in that time frame, and the issue with that is that the weather doesn't really cooperate after a certain period of time.
Like the monsoon season.
Yeah, in the Western Himalaya, what happens in a winter expedition, or at least with Nanga Parbat, because it stands out there all alone, is it kind of creates its own weather systems. But what we've begun to notice is that the worst of the weather moves in around the first week of January, and it doesn't let up. You'll have short intermittent windows here and there, but really your main time to get things done is between December 21st and the last week of January. And that's what the teams on the mountain currently have been experiencing. So we were looking. Pardon?
Sounds like you're knocking back some shots.
I
might be opening a beer right now. So,
I think we're together in spirit, my friend.
Excellent. So what wound up happening with me is that I needed to go over to Budapest and spend some time over there with David and Zoli, kind of rekindle the our relationship, get to know each other a little bit more before we went and spent what could be 3 months together out on a mountain. And what wound up being about 6 weeks altogether at base camp. Our time at base camp was, we left for base camp January 1st, and we left there in the middle of January. I don't have the date offhand. I've got it written in my journal.
How'd your employer feel about that kind of stint?
Well, I was working as an EMT at the time. I am no longer working for the company I was working for. I approached him and said that I approached my boss and said, well, I've been offered to be a climber and a medic on this trip to make climbing history. So I either need to resign or put in a leave of absence. Because I hadn't been with the company long enough to really get a real leave of absence.
Sure.
And they said, well, how about you resign on good terms, and then when you come back, we'll hire you back on. what I didn't take into consideration is that when I got back, my national registry for EMT would have expired, and some of the complications I had with coming back made returning to that job a bit more complicated. But we can get into that later on in the cast, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah. So it wasn't entirely. I haven't really been back in touch. I've talked to a few of the people I worked with then, and there was a general consensus of, whenever I kind of wonder what happened to that kid.
Did he die in the mountain?
Yeah.
Right. Well, maybe they're going to read your article, dude.
A few of them did.
That's good.
I have no idea about my boss, but
He saw it. He saw it. Yep. 100%. He saw it.
But I flew into Budapest December 5th, and I flew out again April 1st, and I flew back to the States. So we got back to Budapest on March 1st. Recovered for about a month there, and kind of catching up with friends, decompressing from the expedition, and having a good time. So Budapest is a fun town if you can make the journey.
So you get there, you get to the country.
Mm-hmm.
You guys go right to base camp, and then you just kind of plan out things, how you're going to do it. You wait for good weather. When did you actually start the climb?
So we got into Islamabad on December 26th. We flew, morning of December 27th. We flew out the day after Christmas. Touchdown in Islamabad, and we spent a few days in Islamabad gathering the last of our supplies. We needed fuel. We needed long bamboo sticks to mark our trail through the snow. A variety of small things to make the expedition work. Then we took a microbus up the Karakoram Highway, which is it says, if you look at it on Google Maps, about 6 hours. It's more along the lines of 12 to 16. It's also depending on if the highway is open at the time. It can close due to clashes from tribal groups or insurgents from the Taliban. And it can also close due to erosion, avalanches, mudslides, the Indus River flooding. So you have a lot of variables you have to work with there.
It's not Disneyland.
No. It's definitely a different kind of world. You eventually link up with a convoy called the Karakoram Highway Patrol, which is it's a military service that kind of moves through the region of Gilgit-Baltistan, where Chelas, the nearest town, is located, to provide support for buses that are moving through the area up to areas like Skardu and the Baltoro. So you have this row of old Toyota Hilux pickup trucks and decommissioned military vehicles that have big 50 cal and 30 cal machine guns on them. The guys are wearing cycle helmets and carrying around Kalashnikovs. It's very exciting. You go through Abbottabad, which was it was just the year before that they had caught bin Laden in Abbottabad.
Wow.
So there's as an American that hasn't had any experience in higher Asia or the Muslim world,
Shell shock, right?
There was definitely some culture shock.
Sure.
One of the first things that happened was we get into Islamabad, we go into a restaurant, we sit down, and David perks up and goes, "Oi, Haji." To me, and having friends in the military, I know Haji as like a pejorative word. That is, it's kind of a slang for a Muslim person, and it's not usually used well. What I didn't know is that is actually a term of endearment in Pakistan, at least, or as somebody that's done the Hajj, the pilgrimage to Mecca.
Okay.
So when the guy came over and was like, "Oh, how can I help you?" I was very confused.
You just thought you racially slurred him, and then he's all good, right?
Yeah, and it was okay. I was like, "What? Are you trying to get a shot? What just happened?" And he's like, "Oh, yeah, I forgot that you guys don't know about that." So it was interesting. And there was a lot of the cultural aspect is phenomenal. One of the other things that kind of threw me off is we'd be walking around either Islamabad or especially in Chalas, and the guys that were showing us around, one guy just like reached down and grabbed my hand, and we walked around hand in hand around it, and there's like, oh, okay, this is just something we do here. Whereas the very traditional male culture in the States, that's a no-no.
Don't you touch my hand, boy.
Yeah.
Touch my hand.
So yeah, it was little cultural things were definitely interesting, and you definitely stand out like a sore thumb as a Westerner out there. So
all eyes on you, right?
Indeed.
Ian, did you have any idea what type of cityscapes or territories you'd be going in and out of, and what type of culture you would be encountering, or was this just all on the fly?
I had a little bit. David had explained what time in Islamabad's like. Although I'd never been in there in the winter, I was expecting it to be. Because one of the things he told me is that in the summer, there's just like cockroaches and mosquitoes everywhere. In the winter, it's beautiful. But as you and culturally, I didn't know what to expect. And mostly it was people asking me where I'm from, and then they'd look at me a little like, "Huh, where are you here?" And I explain, I'm come to climb a mountain. They go, "Okay, cool. Do you want tea?" I go, "Sure, yeah." My first experience with anybody in country is I should preface this. We were sponsored by Johnny Walker, or at least the Hungarian distributor of this.
All right.
Of the whiskey, and they gave us a case of 2 cases of Black Label to take with us. Of course,
watch it with that higher elevation, right?
yeah, right. Need something to get through base camp because that gets boring sometimes.
I can believe it, man. Oh man.
But of course, in Pakistan, you're not allowed to take alcohol into the country. They have very strict rules around the proliferation of alcohol out there. So we decided, well, we'll just stuff it into our bags, we'll stuff it into boots, whatever we need to do, and we'll bring it in, and hopefully we can get it through. Worst case is that they're just going to take it from us. My bag is the only bag that shows up in country. Everybody else is missing. Like I think we had 7 or 8 barrels, and mine was the only one that showed up.
Were you guys flying Spirit Airlines or something?
We flew Turkish, which is really nice. But our luggage wound up in like Qatar or the United Arab Emirates or somewhere, and it had a lot of our important gear, and most of it showed up before we left for base camp. Unfortunately, Zoli's stuff did not, and that led to a lot of problems. However, I've got all this booze shoved into my duffel bag. We walk up. Zoli goes to fill out the paperwork, and this guy walks up to me, and he asks me where I'm from. And he's got a uniform on, chest full of badges, beret, tightly cut mustache. He asked me where I'm from. Tell him I'm from the States. He says that he's from Hungary, and he looks at us kind of funny, and then says, "Do you want tea?" I went, "Sure." We kind of thought that he'll just bring out little styrofoam cups of, a hot tea with a bag. He went out and he got a sterling silver tea set. He brought people over, and we wound up sitting on my duffel bag. Turns out this guy customs. And he starts telling me about Westerners trying to bring booze into his country. He says, this is illegal, and we'll take it from them. And I'm looking at him like, you're sitting on an entire case of this stuff, right?
Wow. That's some funny shit.
So, yeah.
You never looked in your bags?
No, never looked at them. Just kind of hung out with us, talked about what we're going to be doing in Pakistan. wished us well, gave us tea, and some cookies, and we went along our way.
Sounds kind of like the
Uh,
anti-TSA, or the exact
yeah,
opposite, the bizarro TSA, right?
Yeah, very much so.
So,
Anyway,
so I just wanted to bring this up. If you guys are listening right now, we're talking about an article. It's called 8 Things Nobody Tells You About Climbing a Mountain. It's on crack.com. So you go down about these 8 different things. We've talked about the sponsorship, the dangers of the mountain. Actually, I don't think we covered it exactly, but 1 in 4 mountaineers never make it off this mountain. Is that right?
correct. The 1 in 4 summits is what it is.
Okay.
I think it's something in the tune of like a 28% summit to kill ratio. And to put that in perspective, Everest is something to the tune of like 10%, I want to say. It's 1 in 35.
Mm-hmm.
Annapurna has the big ratio, and that's it's 1 in 2, just about. It's 41%. So for every 2 people that make it to the top, somebody's not coming home. And you can't even say going home in a body bag, because a lot of the time it's due to an avalanche or a crevasse fall.
Nobody's finding you.
And you're just going to be frozen up there. And you will be frozen up there. There are bodies that litter Everest. And because there's no oxygen, nothing can live up there. It's freezing cold. The bodies actually wind up being fairly well preserved for a long period of time.
They're still looking for Hillary up there, aren't they?
Mallory.
No, Mallory. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Mallory. And the big debate about Mallory is he the first one to summit Everest?
It or not? Right.
And my argument on that is that it doesn't matter because he didn't make it down.
True.
It doesn't count if you don't get to go home. There are a lot of mountaineers that'll echo that experience or that thought. Namely, guys like Ed Viesters, he's the first American to summit all 14 8,000 meter peaks without supplementary oxygen. He is a beast. So
I read a book. It was about K2. Shit, it was Jim.
Oh, I know the name.
God, it's right on the tip of my tongue. Anyway, he was the only person to bivouac, above a certain height on that mountain. I've read a lot of those mountain adventures on Everest, and it was at one point in my life, I'm like, Everest would be the pinnacle of the experience of a lifetime. And now that I look about it and you hear about it, and every year it seems to get more populated up there and more congested, and there's more problems. It seems like I wouldn't even want to tackle something of that magnitude just because of the sheer people that would be up there. I would want to go to the Himalayas to see like pristine beauty, untouched splendor. And I just feel like Everest probably isn't that anymore. Is that kind of the idea you get from it?
There is a certain Disneyfication that goes with it. There are some unfortunate stories about what's happening on Everest. Most recently, the Sherpas that lost their lives in an avalanche while they were setting up ropes for tourists. I can't remember the exact number. I want to say it's 15. 15 Sherpas died. And it's come to light about how paltry the salary is for the Sherpas compared to the guide services that are running these things, and how much the guide services are taking home when it's the Sherpas that are risking their lives.
Right.
So not only is it, you can pay upwards of $150,000 to go climb Everest with a guide that's got a pool table and a full bar of top shelf liquor at base camp and the whole 9 there.
Seems like it defeats the whole purpose.
It does to a certain extent.
I guess it depends on what you're there for, but
exactly. There is, I salute David and Zole in their efforts to summit Everest. David's been back several times. The mountain's taken at least one of his friends. He's attempting it without the use of supplementary oxygen. He's going for a clean ascent, is what they say. It's an impressive endeavor. Simply breathing at that altitude is tiring. especially once you get up into the death zone and anything above 8,000 meters.
I know for me, I mean, I'm a flatlander, but when I lived out in Colorado for a couple of years, when I was climbing peaks, anything above 13,000 is like, you're really scrounging for air. When I went out there and I climbed Quandary just a couple of years ago when I lived in Michigan, it was a lot different. Like I had trained a lot, making sure I was ready for it. I knew it was going to be like a solo climb in December. It's my snowflake. It wasn't really a winter climb. But, above 13,000 feet, things just get so difficult. Especially when you're at like 14,000. We're talking like, 22,000 feet here, right? I mean, where was base camp? Where were you guys?
So base camp was at 14,400 feet.
All right.
To give you a reference point, to give you a reference point, Long's Peak, one of the more famous peaks in Colorado, I think sits at 14,262. Is I think the height somewhere around there. And it's a notable ascent. The Diamond and the east face of Long's Peak provide amazing technical climbing. And then the Keyhole route itself, the standard route up, it's not a walk in the park. Well, it is. It's Rocky Mountain National Park, but it's not like just a breezeway. So our base camp is about 200 feet higher than the top of Long's.
Damn.
Mount Elbert, for perspective, that's the highest point in Colorado. That's 14,433. So that's probably your base camp right there.
Essentially, yeah.
Yeah, the top of Colorado. That's where you start. That's incredible.
And then you've got another 12,000 something feet to climb. So Nanga Parbat sits at 26,666 feet, 8,126 meters. And the name Nanga, the local name for the mountain is Diamir, which is Naked Mountain. The reason that it's called that is because sections of it are so steep that it doesn't hold snow. It's physically impossible for it to happen. If you have the opportunity, I'd recommend that you go look at at pages from either Danielle Nardi, Elizabeth Raval, or a Polish climber who's just a total badass, a guy named Tomek. I can't remember his actual name. That's his nickname. But they have photos from up in the steep areas of this mountain that we didn't wind up reaching. That are really impressive. The issue with Nanga Parbat is how technical it is, alongside with the weather problems.
Okay, so you guys are on the mountain. You're at base camp. You start moving up. What's your first challenges that you're running into once you're there? I mean, you mentioned that one of the guys' bags didn't make it, and that was a challenge. I read in the article that didn't end up too good.
Correct. So Zoli's barrel didn't make it in time. He was able to borrow his 8,000 meter boots and a few other pieces of equipment, gloves and whatnot, from our logistics support. However, on the way up, hiking an 8,000 meter boots is a bit insane because there are these massive, chunky, heavy things that you have to wear around, and typically don't fit well with just one layer of socks, and without the edema that your feet experience at high altitude. So he was walking up in some beat up leather boots. The temperatures dropped pretty low on the way up. Boots got wet. Zoli got frostbite on his toes, which is very painful.
There's some pictures in the article of people. You can feast your eyes. Gives me the willies.
Compared to like what Tomek is dealing with on the mountain at the moment, it's not excessively horrid or anything like what was the guy's name? Beck Weathers. That's into thin air. Experienced, but it's enough to incapacitate somebody. Zoli, the other guy on the expedition, I should mention that Zoli didn't just bow out like, oh, I just can't do this because of a bit of frostbite. He's got an extensive background with summits of Denali, Aconcagua, Carsten's Pyramid, Vincent Massif in Antarctica, Elbrus in Russia. So he's got 5 of the big 7. He's also been with 200 meters of Everest and spent time on numerous 8,000-meter peaks. He and David have been climbing for a long time. So that really didn't get into the article, and I felt like it diminished Zoli's activity on the mountain. So I big support for that guy. And he may be joining us on further expeditions, which I'd love to hang out with him again.
Awesome. Oh, hey, I remember that guy's name, Jim Whitaker.
There you go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. Sorry about the brain fart, everybody. Jim Whitaker. It's
yeah, it's having the same problem.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So yeah, the missing barrel caused some problems. But we got up to base camp. I want to say we took off January 1st. We got there January 3rd. On the way, it's about a 3-day hike in, and you stop in a village called Skardu, which is a shepherd's village. And then you go up to the village of Kud, which is a summertime restover stop for shepherds that are bringing up their goats into the area. And then you get to base camp. And base camp has a small hut built at it that our kitchen staff wound up taking over. We had a cook and a kitchen boy. Our cook was named Fida, and he did an excellent job of keeping us well fed. It gave us time to plan things, and it also gave us time to rest while we were attempting the mountain. He was also a ton of fun to work with. He's just a really great guy. Anyway.
So some of your challenges.
Yeah, so some of the challenges that we run into actually going up the mountain are, one, it's winter. Snow is deep as all get up. It's been dumping for a long time, and navigating through the rocks, through the crevasses, through the glacial field becomes extremely difficult. We had some extremely fat snowshoes that we were working through the project with, but it's very slow moving, and at that altitude, you need time to adjust.
Hey, Ian.
Yes.
Did you know any of the terrain before you got there? I mean, has it been surveyed and mapped out? And did you have any clue what to avoid or what to skirt? Or was this purely intuitional? And you guys just took your best line?
The way that worked is that there are some old German maps of the glacial of the area. There's a bunch of beta information on the climb from Simona Muro and Dennis Rubko's attempt the year before. And then a lot of it is trying to just kind of figure out how things have shifted in the past year, where the snow is falling, what the avalanche terrain is like now. And there's a lot of variables that go into the terrain at that point. Little things like where snowbanks build up. One of the issues that we encountered is that we thought we could go up and over the ridge of Ganalo Peak, which is adjacent to Nanga Parbat, as a method of skirting about 1.5 miles of travel that took up a significant amount of time. We thought that if we could go up and over this ridge, we'd be able to make it to Camp 1 faster. Unfortunately, what wound up happening was we got up into the just below that ridge and found out that on the other side is about 1,000 feet of drop into an innavigable crevasse field, just a giant ice fall with no way through it. So we spent a bit too much time trying to figure out if we could go up and over this thing and not just booking it straight for the head wall of the climb and taking a left.
Yeah, that happens.
So there was a bit of time wasted there. We were also dealing with issues of course, Zoli's barrel not showing up. Equipment was stolen from us. We don't know exactly by who, but some of our equipment disappeared during the transport and then reappeared at base camp.
So I'm going to quote you in the article here. It says, while all this is going on, I'm sure this is when it all breaks in. But in the article it says, because I soon discovered all the horrible ways this mountain can murder a motherfucker. I mean, this is a really well-written article. It's got a lot of humor in it. When you're talking about this kind of experience, what kind of ways are there that this mountain can murder a motherfucker?
Well, the first one that I experienced was as we were going out and exploring the Ganalo Ridge. We set up a little exploratory camp just below the ridge in a small basin. As we were setting up the tent, I lost control of the fly, the covering for the tent. It keeps the rain out, and it took off in the wind and wrapped around the stone pillar, and I could keep an eye on it. So without thinking, I just yelled, "Got it," and took off sprinting, which is just a stupid rookie move. As I'm booking it down the hill, no crampons, one ice tool with me, I turn around a corner, and the world just kind of drops out below me. I hear a shatter of what sounded like glass, and I feel an impact at my feet. I look around and kind of go, what the fuck just happened? I'm looking directly at an ice wall in front of me. There's about just a few inches between the top of my head and the top of the crevasse, and I'm standing on an ice ledge. I look down at my feet, and it just fades into black. I couldn't look down deep enough into it to figure out how far this thing really went. So I hook my tool up on the edge of the crevasse, haul myself out, just in time for Zoli to turn around the corner and yell, "Hey, you want some crampons or another ice tool or something?" And I'd never climbed like this with these guys, so I don't want to panic and freak out and be just have to find out that I'm a coward then. So I'm like, "No, it's cool. I got it."
It's all good. I'll just teeter on the edge of destruction. I got it. I'm all zen. I'm here in the Himalayas, like the Buddhist monks. Right?
So I just kind of like, okay, just go get the fly, scurry up this little pillar, unwrap the fly, go around the crevasse, and take it back to camp. And like, everything okay? Yeah, I'm fine. It's cool. Next day we find out that there's nothing over that ridge. We book it back down, and start moving up towards the head wall to try this line called the Messner 2000 line. It was a route that Reinhold Messner had attempted in 2000. As we're going up, we were able to establish Camp 1 a few days later. We start doing exploratory searches to figure out where to set up Camp 2. Get up into an ice fall, and on the way, we got off to a late start. That's the other problem with climbing winters. You have a short amount of working time.
There's the daylight, right?
A few hours of daylight,
right.
Especially when you're in a giant basin surrounded by 6,000 to 8,000 meter peaks. Yeah. We wound up getting stuck in the dark. We're coming back. We lose sight of our trail from blowing snow, falling snow, and trying to navigate our way back through. And it's very methodic. We've got our headlamps on. David's fading out. We're unroped because we can move faster. And it's just, I've got trekking poles out at this point. And I'd poke ahead and check the ground, and it's fine. So I take a step and poke the ground, check the ground ahead of me. It's fine. Just trying to maintain steady breath and all that. And it becomes really meditative. It's a really nice experience for the most part. And then
I get that. I get a lot of that out of hiking, just in general. Not necessarily at 8,000 meters, but anywhere I hike, it's kind of you get in that zone where you're in a pattern, you're in this rhythm, yeah, and it becomes like a meditation.
Yeah, it gives you time to just kind of fall into being. Instead of when I'm in the mountains, I don't think about like, oh God, I've got all these bills. Hey, what the hell am I doing? Or I don't worry about relationships that I've screwed up, or what I'm going to do for a job. It's more of like I'm here, and this is beautiful, and I need to be. Or it's also, this could kill me. I need to be here.
Focus, right? Yeah. So
eventually, I I take one more step, and there's no shatter this time. There's no real like realization that something has just happened. The world just kind of gives out below me. I catch myself on my front spurs, or my front points of my crampon and a heel spur. And you want to say something like, "Oh, I seem to have a problem," or "David, you give me a hand," and what comes out of your mouth is a string of expletives that would make sailors blush. That you want to say something nice, and what comes out is, "Oh shit!"
Yeah, exactly.
Help! So David winds up coming over. He bellies up to the crevasse so he doesn't fall in himself. Throws a ski pole under my arm, levers me up just enough that I can reach the other side. Haul myself out, tosses me a rope, and I tie in, jump back across the crevasse, and just hug the guy. It just saved my life. We keep on down.
You're kind of indebted to him now, aren't you?
Yeah, very much so.
That's that whole thing now, right?
That's yeah. I owe him more than I can ever offer. We keep on moving down. It's dark as all get up at this point. No moon. It's my headlamp. David's headlamp's faded to all hell. We're walking across the snowfield with one more gully or couloir to go down before we're at camp. And you can feel the ground just shake and rumble.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah.
It looks like dragons coming off the mountain.
It looks like what's coming off the mountain?
Like a dragon has just blown smoke down the mountain. It's this giant plume coming right at you.
Oh my god.
I yell, "Incoming." David yells, "Run."
Jesus Christ.
Just booking it as fast as he can, lungs burning, legs pounding. David yells something at me, and I don't know what he says because there's a Hungarian at first, and then he yells down and pulls me down. And we just kind of curl up at the edge of this crevasse and hope nothing hits us. You can feel things kind of pelting you coming off from the side, little golf ball-sized pieces of ice. And to the best of my knowledge, it was a serac that broke off, a hanging glacier. And we just stayed down for a while and listened to this thing rumble by. You can't see anything. Your eyes are full of dust and snow and ice pellets.
Are you guys covered in snow and ice right now? Or is
Well,
it
that
kind of when
we got lucky. We didn't get buried. It was just all spit drift. We had got out of the direct blast path. I stand up. David pulls me back down, thinking that there might be a secondary wave coming. We both just nothing comes after a while. We both stand up and look at each other, and I kind of went. He just kind of looks at me, looks around for a second, goes, "Okay, let's keep going."
No big deal. Right?
No big deal. Yeah,
oh
just,
my god.
Get down to Camp 1, head back up the next day, keep on looking for Camp 2, set up a cache of gear for later on. We get word that another storm's going to be coming in the next couple of days, so we need to go down. Moving down, David falls into a crevasse in the dark. I lever him out. Can't find the trail. So he kind of looks around for a second and just starts plodding around in this back and forth kind of squarish. It's like walking in a pattern. What are you doing? I'm setting up a bed. You might want to as well. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So we just packed out this bed, and this platform in the snow. Laid out our sleeping bags, and tried to drift off. And I barely slept that night. The thermometer gets squirrely, like around -30, so we weren't really sure how cold it was. It's cold. Nothing like they're experiencing up at the saddle. Just got report from Elizabeth and Pomic that they were looking around like -45, -47. That's Celsius, up at 7,800 meters.
That's
Um,
Celsius, you're saying?
yeah.
Wow.
So you're like in the negative 50s or so,
Fuck, man. That's
Fahrenheit.
cold shit.
Yeah. And that's what they were dealing with up high. But we tried to radio into Zoli. He said that the moon's not going to come out until about 3 o'clock, so you're not going to have any light for the rest of the night. And you just laid back and watched the galactic rim spin overhead, and just talk your way through the night and hopefully get some sleep from time to time.
Is there anywhere that you saw stars that were more brilliant than that?
The only place that's even close was actually here in the States. If the Wind Rivers in Wyoming, if you can get up the Titcomb Basin, you are in the you're up in the winds, a good like 30 something miles away from anybody, and it's rather brilliant. I was up there when I was 16 for the first time. I remember being able to read under the moon without a headlight.
Wow.
So that's about the only other place in the world I've been that I've seen a sky like that.
Hey, Ian, tell us about your sleeping bag. How do you stay warm in that thing?
Yeah, good question, Chuck.
I've got a Mountain Hardwear Ghost sleeping bag, and it's rated to negative 40. There are a variety of options that you can use, though, for moving light and fast. One of the preferred methods right now is actually use what's called an 8,000 meter suit. I've got a big blue puffy full body down suit that kind of makes me look like somebody tried to choke out the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. Just a big poopy thing that if you're climbing at high altitude, you can just climb in that, especially in extremely cold temperatures. And then you bring like a 40-degree sleeping bag so it doesn't take up a lot of space in your ruck. And you're able to store more food and fuel and the things that you need to survive up there. That's one technique. The other technique is that you bring something along like the negative 40 bag and you climb in more standard alpine clothes, which is what we were doing at this time. So laid that thing out, threw my parka on, laid out I took the back out of my the kind of back support out of my bag, used that as a sleeping pad, and crashed out there for the night. The catch to this is that when we woke up, we saw our bamboo marker maybe 15, 20 feet ahead of us. And it was just so black at that point in time of night that we couldn't see that far ahead of us. We couldn't find that marker. So, yeah.
Better stay put then, right?
Mm-hmm. Falling into a crevasse is no joke. Tomek on the Polish-French expedition this year is actually out of commission at this point. He fell into a crevasse up around 6,400 meters. He broke several ribs. He's got 6 toes in pretty severe frostbite right now, and has done some damage to his leg. So he's hurting. A crevasse fall can mean your life. So it's better to stay put and suffer through some cold than take the fall.
Now the trip at this point started to take its toll on Zoli, right?
Yeah. So Zoli had, because of his frostbite, he had a hard time walking at the beginning of it, and developed. He wasn't able to acclimate as fast as David and I were. Along with that, he started developing what's called Kumbu cough. And apparently this happens to him on a lot of expeditions. He just starts coughing. It's what happens to him, and he just deals with it. But because he couldn't acclimate fast enough, he felt like he was just kind of sitting in base camp, dealing with a generator that wouldn't work, trying to fix solar panels that were broken, and being a radio liaison, and that he didn't really need to be there anymore. So, and understandably so. Base camp is exceedingly boring. I read the same Game of Thrones book 3 times in the course of like 2 weeks. When you're waiting out storms or trying to acclimate, there's nothing to do but play around in the snow, which gets old quick. Read books and then watch movies that you have, of course, legally downloaded, right?
Yeah, that you've seen 100 times already, right?
Exactly. So it gets exceedingly boring. So we took him back to Chelas. We went with him back to Chelas and waited out a storm down there in Chelas. He caught a bus back to Islamabad. We had some interesting altercations with the police in Chelas, where we got hauled into the police station. And the chief of police was very concerned because there were these 3 white guys walking around his town and had hordes of children following us. And
You guys are starting a cult, right? I mean,
well, we had this like, kids would get out of school and they'd just come and like hang out and follow you, and they'd watch you eat, and it was pretty weird. There was a booth in town that sold mobile phones, and they just pulled us in they're like, hey, come and hang out with us, and we just hang out, and they brought us tea and rice and a few other things, and we're like, we're gonna go. No, come on, hang out. But this caught the attention of the police, and they eventually this white car just pulls up right next to us, and a guy gets out, he's got a shotgun in the back of the car, and he talks to David, and I'm like, what's he talking about? And he says, well, he says that we need to go with him. He's with the police. And we go, oh, okay. I don't go into police stations voluntarily in the States. So being asked to go into a police station in a foreign country is all the more interesting. We go into this big horseshoe-shaped corridor, or this big horseshoe-shaped garden in the middle of the police station. There's a desk with that's just sitting in the middle of the garden. Guy sitting behind it, looks very with a big calendar, notebook, and a telephone, and sit down at his desk, and he asks us, what we're doing in this town, and informs us that we're not really welcome in the town proper, but he needs to get all of our information. So we give him passports. He looks at David and says, "What's your name?" And he says, "David Klein." He says, "What is your profession?" And he says, "Oh, I'm a climber." He writes down climber. And so he looks at Zoli, asks the same questions, get the same answers. He looks at me, and I say, "My name's Ian Overton, from the United States, and I'm just going to say climber to go with it." And David blurts out, "Doctor." And I looked at him, I go, and I'm thinking in my head, I'm like, I'm an EMT, I'm not a doctor. And then I think, like, I've also got a bag full of Dr. Feelgood. Yeah, sure, I'm a doctor. Why not? Let's do this. And he goes, "Oh, doctor." And then he talks to a few of his guys, and immediately they come up, and at least one of them's like, "Oh, I have this bellyache. To check me out." And I'm doing diagnostics on cops.
All I'm seeing in my head right now is Spies Like Us, dude.
It's
you have to perform surgery, doctor, right?
It hurts when I do this. Don't do that.
And what it came down to is the guy had just eaten too much food, and he had a bellyache. And it's like, "So how much did you eat?" And he goes, "Oh, 5 or 6." And I said, 5 or 6 pieces? And he goes, "No, 5 or 6 helpings." Well, you've eaten too much food. Here's you give him some antispasmodics and an antidiarrheal, and it's fine. But they wound up giving us a ride in their Toyota Hilux pickup truck back down to the hotel, and informed us, "Don't come back into town again." David and I spent a couple more days in Chelas, waiting out the storm, take off, go back to base camp, and one of these days, it winds up being about a 17-hour straight slog from Serre up to base camp. We bypass Kuhn. We've run out of food, we've run out of water on the way up within like the first day, so we have not a whole lot to go up there with. Get in at about 3 o'clock in the morning, knock back some tea and a little bit of food, fall asleep, take the next day as the rest day, get word that another storm is coming in, so we have to book it and try to set up camp 2. So we haul up to Camp 1, spend the night there. Next day, and we're feeling good. Just like, yeah, we got this. Like, we're on top of it. We've got a lot of energy. We wake up early the next morning. We're ready to go through the whole arduous process of just simply getting dressed in -10, -15, and get on the move. We start going up this couloir that I had done 4 or 5 times before and just flown up. And suddenly I've got no energy whatsoever.
So out of the blue?
Yeah, just out of the blue. Just everything drains out of me, like midway between 3 or 4 peaks. And I keep on trying to go, and I yell down to David that I'm not feeling well. So he comes up and he finishes the pitch, and he kind of looks at me funny. We get up to the top. I sit down. I have a little bit of food. Take some medication to quell the nausea and the headache I've been developing over the past few minutes. And then we take off for the ice field and the cache of gear set up for Camp 2. We make it through this ice labyrinth that we had to navigate, and it's beautiful. The videos is on Cracked, is navigating our way through what would essentially be a small crevasse if you were coming into it, but it turned into a labyrinth for us. Up a big technical ice climb, about 50, 60 feet. Yeah, maybe not that far. Maybe about 40. And by the time we reach our high point, David looks back and he sees me take about steps and then hit my knees. And I do it again and then fall.
It's a good sign.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And
everything's
says,
fine.
Okay. Yeah. Well, that's the thing is that's where your mind goes. Like, no, I'm fine. This is okay. I can keep doing this. I want to see what's above this next ridge.
Mm-hmm. Obsess much?
Yeah.
Right?
It's called summit fever.
Right.
And we weren't even close to the summit.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of falsies you got to go through to get to that summit, I'm sure.
Yeah. Just a few.
Uh-huh.
But he looks at me and he's like, no, we need to turn around. Hey, come on, I just want to keep going. No, we need to turn around. So we turn around. We start going down. And we get to that ice fall, that drop, that 40-foot drop. And I look at it, David goes down. I run the ropes through my belay belay device to rappel back in, and they got crossed. So, all right, do it again. One of them doesn't go in. I do it again, and I put it in backwards. And I've done this, dozens to 100 times a year since I was about 12. Yeah, I can't.
It's like tying your shoes, really, right?
Yeah,
I mean, it's something you know by heart. You probably do with your eyes closed.
Precisely. And I can't make it happen. So finally, I load it, I look at it, and go, hope that's right, and just lean back.
Oh my God.
Rope catches. I go down. I unclip from the rope, and David looks at me and goes, "What took so long?" And I went, "Oh, I couldn't figure out how to load my belay device." And he looks at me, says, "Yeah, we're getting the fuck out of here."
Yeah, it's time. It's time to stop getting our ass kicked, right?
So Ian, you're a medic, right? And you feel all your energy drained from you. Surely you're thinking all of this medical stuff that's happening to your body, or were you not?
I figured it was just basic AMS, acute mountain sickness, and so I drank some water, ate a little bit of food, took some Diamox, took Lopedium, or not Lopedium, Nospa, which is an antispasmodic, so I wouldn't throw up. And I just was like, all right, I'll be better. And it starts to become abundantly more clear that there's something very wrong. But there's that drive to want to go further kind of complicates things. And it's a little blurry for me at certain points. There's a video that's on Cracked, and I've got it in the Dropbox. If you want to show it to listeners, more than welcome to. It's a video that we recorded when we decided to turn around. It became abundantly clear to me that at that point that I wasn't going to make it. We weren't going to summit. David wanted to keep going. He was saying that, maybe I could work as a solo climber or as a support climber and help him up the mountain. But I was staggering. There were times that I was talking to me in Hungarian, and he wasn't. I was hearing birds that weren't there, and just
That's more than just AMS, then, right?
Yeah, that winds up being what's called high altitude. We can't be 100%, but the theory, I believe I got high altitude cerebral edema, which is due to hypoxic damage to the brain, meaning no oxygen or a lack of oxygen. You start to build up fluid in your cerebral cavity, in your brain. The editor that I worked with Cracked put it in a rather cute way. It's rather like giving your brain a hug in the same way that a boa constrictor hugs a pygmy goat. It has no interest in keeping it alive. At the later stages, you have your pupils go all askew, start slurring your words, you pass out, comatose, and die. Is the end result of haze, unless you treat it.
So hearing birds that aren't there and hearing Hungarian that isn't there, those are signs, I guess.
Yeah, it's a cue that something has gone wrong in your head. So we drop altitude. We boogie on back to base camp.
Now, are you worried about yourself at this point? You're like, whatever, it is what it is. I'll get through it, or where were you with that?
That actually, I didn't care so much about me. I felt like I'd let David and Zoli down at that point. That I hadn't trained hard enough. That, and this is at that point. In retrospect, there are certain aspects that, I shouldn't have been up there. I'm a rookie climber. This is my first experience on an 8,000 meter peak at all. It was absurd. It was an expression of hubris. But at the same time, I was given the option, and I felt the need to live, so I went for it.
I understand that. I applaud you for it, man. I mean, you knew the risks, you knew everything like that, but sometimes we have this deep drive inside us that says we're for some reason I have to do this,
Exactly.
And some people just don't understand it. Like even me, I've done I think 12 14ers, right? And people in Michigan, they think I'm completely insane that I would go do something like that. And I was out in Colorado before I even knew kind of what 14ers were when I was out there traveling. I would talk with locals. They're like, what's there unique to do out here? I had spent some time in Utah and all that. And it just felt like it was something I wanted to do, man. I had a hernia surgery. And then after that, I'm like, the one thing I want to do while I'm out here is I'm going to climb a 14er. And then I got hooked. I did Princeton first and then, but those are tiny mountains, compared to what you're dealing with. But for somebody to think you're crazy doing a 14er and an 8,000 meter peak is in the winter, on one of the most difficult ones, you're talking about just the supercharger.
Yeah, it's a beast. And it's, so far, up to this year, it's been unsummited. There are a few people up there that are making the attempt, right now. Danielle Nardi of Italy is making an attempt up what's called the Mummery Rib. There is a team from Russia that's currently has a camp set up at 7,100 meters on the Rupel face, which is the tallest mountain face on the planet. That's 14,000 vertical feet of straight climbing.
Oh my God.
And then there is an Iranian team that is showing up, that should have showed up at the Rupel face base camp by now, along with a Spanish climber that's attempting it solo. If you want to check out more information on what's going on there this year, check out explorersweb.com. is a good information source for that.
Explorersweb.com.
Correct.
Okay. All right, cool. So you guys are like throwing in the towel, so at that point, where are you guys heading?
Well, we get back down to base camp. We radio in that we're done with the expedition. We can't keep going.
Are any of your symptoms mitigating at this point? Once you get down to base camp? All the
Well-
way down to 14,000 feet.
Yeah. I thought that they were going okay during the day. Talking to David afterward, he said that my behavior became really erratic. That I could be kind of overly aggressive at people. The one that did worry me the most, though, is that I was reading these books by these sci-fi books by this guy Ian M. Banks, and they're really good books. It's called the Culture series, and it's about this kind of like interstellar hedonistic culture. It's in the far off future, and they have this group of spies that work for them, or mercenaries, I guess, that take care of problematic people in the universe.
It's like galactic hitmen.
Essentially,
Yeah.
And as I drift off to sleep, this kind of weird space of being asleep and awake, and this actually might apply to something that you asked earlier on your website about lucid dreaming or sleep paralysis.
I just had the last podcast that's released, we had a lucid dreaming expert on, Ryan Hurd. So
Okay.
yeah, it was just for us talking, it was 2 days ago for me, but for the listeners, it's probably a couple week lapse here. But
Okay.
continue. I'm very interested to hear this.
Well, at that point between drifting off to sleep and being awake, I thought that I was actually the liaison for this guy on an ice planet. And
You lost it, son.
Yeah. There were several times that I'd get up and I'd walk out to the door and I'd step outside and start moving to the glacier, and then realize that I'm in my long johns and socks or down boots, and I'm moving through an ice field, and like time to turn around, or like I was moving towards the glacier, and I'd finally like, okay, and then go back inside. That stopped when the hallucinations about being involved in that book stopped about 3 days in, when I stopped reading the books. Problem is, I went back to that same the Game of Thrones book, the second one in the series, Clash of Crowns or whatever it is. And then it's just all like Dothraki and the Wall and
Joffrey
ice monsters.
right?
Yeah, like it just same crazy ass hallucinations that I was actually involved in that world. And it doesn't make sense. It sounds insane when I'm talking about it, and I guess technically it is. But it's weirdest trip of my life.
Have you ever had experiences with psychedelics and having hallucinations before?
I have, and this was definitely different than anything that I've experienced on a hallucinogen, either LSD or mushrooms.
How so?
With either of those two hallucinogens, it's I feel much more at peace with things, or I'm interested in the structure of what's around me. I have had completely dissociative experiences where I've relived my entire relationship with a person.
Uh-huh.
Not a romantic relationship, but a friendship of mine.
Mm-hmm.
I at one point thought that I was involved with a cult, but they had really good food, so hey, that's cool. I was very at peace with the process. I've never had what would be stereotyped as a bad trip. This was a complete detachment with reality. I was trying to interact with the real world in a way that doesn't really exist.
Okay.
Whereas with the hallucinogens, I could be like, oh, I'm on drugs.
Right. Yeah. You can at least explain to yourself out of it, like why you're feeling this way or whatnot.
Correct. Yeah. Or you got somebody there to talk you down. This is in the middle of the night, in the middle of Pakistan, and I'm walking myself out into for no damn reason outside of the fact that my brain is just gone AB.
Chuck, that's like your normal Friday night, right?
That used to be the case quite frequently.
So yeah. So to my folks and my grandparents, if you're listening in, that's hadn't really talked about that one before.
We are an equal opportunity podcast.
Yeah.
All walks of life are welcomed here.
But yeah, it was definitely a different experience. However, at that same time, one of the things that you experience on psychedelics is this kind of this increase of awareness of your surroundings, or
more of a connectedness feeling, right?
Yeah, you feel very a bit more understanding about the world around you, and that same feeling is why I climb, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
When you get past that place of, when you get into that rhythm, or you get into that place past panic or fear, or that it is it centers, it provides perspective into the rest of the world.
I've had some very powerful moving experiences on the mountains. The one I did when I was alone, I really had a chance to kind of be myself away from any kind of group or anything, and just had a couple major experiences where, just the awe-inspiring beauty just brought me to my knees and tears in my eyes type of thing. Mm-hmm. I feel you on that for sure. Chuck, when you climb, you ever experience something real powerful like that, or is it just like a general day in the mountains?
I do get that feeling. It's usually around 13,000 feet when the air gets really thin,
mm-hmm.
and I start getting really super giddy. And then there's another 1,000 feet to go, and so you're at the summit, and you've kind of acclimated to the lack of oxygen, and sometimes you feel really good. There's no drug or there's no drink that could substitute the feeling of the universe that's flowing through you at the moment, and you don't want to leave. You're it. You are with it. You're part of the whole experience at that moment. And it kind of sucks going back down. But that's what takes you back up over and over and over again.
True. Yeah.
Yeah. That's precisely it. And it's that drive to be somewhere better, or that drive to establish that feeling. Guys like Nietzsche were fans of climbing mountains. It's an experience that brings you to reality, in its rawest sense. Yeah.
So you guys are done with the mountain now. How has it been since you came off the mountain? How long did it take you to kind of get back to equilibrium with your day-to-day self? You must have lost a lot of weight, and due to problems with your brain. How quick did all that bounce back, or has it?
Well, there's so we get off the mountain, we head back down, and we spend a night in Chalas. One of the things that happens down there is David and I are sharing a room, and it's sometime early in the morning. I kind of open my eyes, and it looks like the entire world is trembling around me. And I look over, and David's looking around too, like, what the hell? And I realized that this just isn't me having a hallucination. We're in fact in an earthquake.
We're leaving, right?
What was great is we both kind of looked at each other and went, and then just went back to bed.
We went through an avalanche, crevasse falls, whatever. Right?
Yeah. But we catch the we jump into the microbus, head back down to Islamabad, and we're completely out of money at this point. So we're scraping the bottom of the barrel. We get this kind of cheap hotel in Rawalpindi, which is the residential zone of Islamabad. we've got 10 days until our flight goes out. So we figure we'll go out and we'll check out the town and go report back to the Pakistani Mountaineering Club. But within a day or two, one, the inside of my right foot had gotten kind of messed up that bivouac night, and I'd been able to climb on it. It wasn't horrible, but something happened when we went down. I think just eventually it wore raw and got infected. So the inside of my foot started to kind of rot away. On top of that, there was something living in the bed with me. I'm not entirely sure if it was fleas or bed bugs, but I still have the scars up and down my right side from these things chewing on me. And on top of that, the doctors don't. I've talked to a few docs about this, and we haven't been able to figure it out. All the tests have come back negative. Not sure if it's Giardia, Cryptosporizia, some other kind of amoebic parasite, or just like I've been eating curry for the past 3 months and my body's fucking sick of it. As Cracked put it, I got a case of the whooping shit.
Oh my god.
Like it was, and it kicked off at the Pakistani Mountaineering Club. I kind of was sitting there and we were waiting to talk to somebody, and I looked over at David and I was like, "Hey, I need to go for a second." He's like, "All right, disappear." So I went, did the thing, and I was like, "I can't hang out with you guys anymore." They go, "Why?" Like, I just need to go back to the hotel. Didn't want to get into it too much. I spent the next 7 or 8 days unable to like leave my room for more than a couple hours at a time for fear of losing it, as it were.
And you're already dehydrated as shit by right now, right?
Yeah, I'm a skinny guy to begin with. I'm about 6'2", but I weigh in at $165 on a good day. When we got off the mountain, I didn't really find this out until I was back in Budapest. I was weighing in at like $145, $140 or so. I had lost nearly 20 pounds of muscle and fat by the time we got back. So I'm just ribs and bone. We get back to Budapest, and the thought was like, oh, we'll go out in the town and we'll just hang out with people. It'll be cool. And I didn't. My stomach was still messed up, so I didn't want to go out in public. I spent about a week or so at David's place, not going out, just and generally not wanting to be around people for whatever reason. So I just like cramming back food by the ton. Wound up going out to Budapest to see a friend of mine, or not to Budapest, but to Berlin, to catch up with a friend of mine, but didn't want to go. Like, Berlin has this explosive nightlife and is a very, like, social city and lots of cool counterculture and history, and I didn't want to see a damn thing about it. I just wanted to talk to another American and to a close friend and be able to just, like, dump out what just happened, but trying to explain that to her roommates was a little difficult until we went through. They were like, so you were on this trip, do you have pictures? And I ran them through a slideshow, and that ended with, so I'm sorry I've been a bit of a bad house guest. I don't know how to interact with people right now.
Did you lose some social skills up there, or what happened?
Well, it was, there's this thing that they call post-expeditionary depression, that comes up with some people, and I've talked to a few explorers, and usually it only lasts a few days. But I came back and I was a little out of it for a while. I had wound up this whole thing had like cost me a 4-year-long relationship with a girl. It was just a catalyst. It was never going to work out anyway. But there was
going through like some kind of existential shit, right?
Yeah, exactly. It brought about this big shift in my in who am I? What am I? What am I doing here? Kind of questions. Got back to the States, and realized I needed to figure myself out again. And it's since I've been back, it took a few months to get back to normal. You're like, all right, this is what I'm doing. I'm going to climb. I'm going to go back and study medicine. I'm currently working on a degree in nursing, and looking to get back into the medical field, and also go out and climb even more. I've had a lot of fun just in the past few months. We did Keeners on Longs, which is considered the mountaineer's route, but we did a winter ascent. A lot of fun, kind of alpine mixed climbing and kind of exciting work. Probably the best thing I've done since the expedition. Made a whole slew of new patriots, and because of the Cracked article, actually, I've been in touch with several people here in Colorado that are looking to return to Pakistan around the same time that David Zoli and I are looking to go back.
Me and Chuck are going to have to add you to the 14ers.com Facebook group page, man. That thing has like exploded the last couple of years with all kinds of people in there now. It's a really humorous place, but it's great information for anything 14er related. I posted it up that we were going to be talking with you earlier today. A lot of people read the article, and everybody's blown away by it. You know, it's a real great piece.
Excellent. Oh, well, thank you. Actually, if you're on 14er on the 14ers page, there are several guys that are looking to go to G1, G2, and I think they just put up a retrospective of their time on Mount Logan. And look that up. The Colorado boys from Logan. See here, Matt Collins, Nolan McKelvin, Jacob Wells. A few other guys are just wonderful climbers here based in Colorado and looking at getting on some intense stuff here shortly. So
Cool. Well, we've been talking well over an hour now. I think we should probably wind it down. I got one question I have to ask both of you while I got you. Is what's your favorite mountain that you've been on, and why? And what would be the mountain that what is your next big mountain that you would want to do? Chuck, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I'm not as international as Ian.
Nor am I, sir.
You know, when I was a kid, I grew up in Colorado, but when I was a kid on weekends, my dad took us up in the mountains and we'd camp all the time. So, as I got older and was able to drive and get up there myself, I started climbing the peaks. And as a photographer, I thought being on top of the peak, you know, was the most unique thing ever. And I was going to take all the pictures that have ever been taken on top of a 14er and share it with the world. And that would be special. But anybody can take a camera up to the top of a peak and take a picture anymore. So I haven't ventured outside of Colorado. Of all the 14ers I've done, you know, I have probably 13 left to finish a list of 58, and I've repeated almost 20, you know, so there's maybe 60-ish peaks. So I certainly haven't done them all, but of the ones I've done in the San Juans, Sneffels is really, really trippy. The way that the geology, the way that the rock kind of drips and kind of stretches up into the sky and then drips back down. It looks really, really cool. So from an aesthetic point, I think Sneffels is really beautiful. Now Capitol, on the other hand, in the Elks, there's a lot of rotten and crumbly rock, and we had an accident on Capitol, but we continued to the summit. We got back down, but that's a big badass mountain, and it offers a lot of different skill level and technique, and it keeps you kind of alert the entire time. It took us 12 hours to go 5 miles round trip after the injury, but that was probably one of my favorites.
And then where would you want? What's your pie in the sky mountain?
You know, I might have to reserve answer on that until I finish out this Colorado list of 58 peaks. I don't want to cheat any of the other peaks out of the answer if I haven't done it yet.
You're so politically correct, Chuck. Mountainly correct.
I'm
right.
excited to hear what Ian has on his list.
Yeah.
And well, as for local mountains, actually, Crestone Needle is a ton of fun. For a local cruise, if you haven't done it yet, check it out. And I really recommend, if you're into technical climbing at all, the Ellingwood Arete, which isn't necessarily a difficult climb. Most of it's class 4, meaning that you don't have to rope up, but you could, and it might be recommended at spots. But then there's a couple of pitches. The standard route goes at 5.6, so it's pretty easy. You can do a 5.8 or 5.9 variation, which is a lot of fun, and it's all on trad gear. But it takes you right up to the summit, right along the main arete of the mountain. And you'll get a good, you'll start sucking wind towards the end of it. Alongside that, Dead Dog Tour on Tories is a fun route. So for local peaks, that's a ton of fun. I'd love to go back to Nanga Parbat in the winter or in the summer and make another attempt at it. Other peaks that are just like quintessentially beautiful, Denali, of course, in the States, Alpamayo down in South America in the Cordilla Blanca. It's hard to say if there's a perfect peak, but there are so many places to go. There's so much to see, and there's that phrase that there's nothing new under the sun, that everything's been done before, right? Pakistan just opened up the Saltoro region, and there's hundreds of 6,000 meter and 7,000 meter peaks that have never been climbed before. Sichuan region in China has all this territory that's never been explored. The Waddington Range out in British Columbia still puts up first ascents on the regular.
Wow.
And there's so much to do. It would be a shame to just focus on these few mountains. I mean, David just this winter put up new routes in the High Tatras in Slovakia. There's a world of possibility that awaits us in the mountaineering community and in the rest of the world. There's so much to do, and I encourage everybody to get at it.
Yeah, me too, man. I wish I was back out there. I'm hoping a work trip is going to take me out there mid-February next month. Hoping to see a couple people out there. I'm still coming back from my leg injuries from earlier this year. I broke my fibula a couple times, had some surgery. So I'm not ready for anything major yet. Still waiting for the doctor's clearing this time. Going to be smart about it. I would say that probably Princeton was my favorite mountain. That was the one I kind of busted my cherry on. It was cool to start on a class 2, and get some of that gnarly stuff out of the way. Albert holds a real special place in my heart because that's the tallest out there, and I scattered my dad's ashes off on that one. So that's cool. One that got away from me is Uncompahgre. We were out there on a family vacation a few years ago, and we had some car problems, and that put us behind 2 days, and those are my Uncompahgre days. So still got to do Grays and Tories, so that was fun. But that's the one that got away. That's the one I really got my eye on. That's the one that's most feasible for me to do. But the pie in the sky one would have to be Denali, just because it's in the States. It's in Alaska. I'd never been up there. The Colorado 14ers have impressed me so much. I can't imagine what kind of splendor's up there in the Denali region. Those are big boys up there, and that's more of like an expedition type of situation up there.
Definitely.
Have you done Denali?
I have not. I need to get up there.
Well, hit me up, man. You need to get us both some sponsorship.
Sounds good. Well, you got the podcast with the listeners, so that's
send them in, people. We need donations.
Yep.
IntellectualGentlemen'sClub.com. Pull them in.
Yeah. On that note, if I may, I'd like to say thanks to the people that helped me get out there. That's all my friends that that supported me on this endeavor. My climbing team as well, David Nzoli, Vicky, Brian Garcia, and then of course our sponsors over at Johnny Walker Mountain Hardware, Camp USA, Princeton Tech, Tubbs Snowshoes, and Cold Venture. That's a huge help. Thank you guys so much, and everybody that donated on Indiegogo. So.
That's great. So what's next? What's coming up for you?
So there's talk about heading out to the Gasher Broms next summer, not this coming summer, but the following. So back to Pakistan for G1 and possibly G2. Both of them are 8,000-meter peaks. Pardon me, David Zoli and I are looking at G1 and Broad Peak, which are very close to each other. And I've had an invite to do G2 with some of the boys here in Colorado, which would be exciting. That being said, there's a lot to do in the next year. Plan on brushing up on technical mixed and ice climbing skills. David may be coming out to the States in the fall, and we're looking at doing some big fall stuff. Nothing on the scale of the Dawn Wall, but definitely getting at some fun activities on the rock.
Very cool. Well, Chuck, you got anything more for Ian?
No, I really don't, Ian. It's a pleasure to have met you. The article on Cracked is hilarious.
Thank you.
I'm gonna use some of the phrasing. I'm gonna call it some phraseology of yours. If we ever connect on Facebook and you see your name tagged in a comment, it's because I'm getting silly.
All right,
so
sounds good.
Ian Overtonisms.
Oh,
there you go.
I got to give some credit to Mr. Jason Benson, who's the editor that I worked with. He did a great job. Yeah, thank you so much, and thanks for having me on.
All right, guys. Well, I wish you guys all the best of luck. Have fun climbing out there. I hope to join you soon someday. I'm stuck in Michigan, got these flatlands. The closest thing I get to a mountain is Mount Brighton. It's a little ski resort that we built on top of a garbage dump. But, hey, we take it where we can get it. I've been getting out there hiking in my local woods and things like that, just trying to get back out to nature a little bit, spread my wings a little bit. So, you guys have fun out there.
Will do. And hey, if I remember correctly, there's an ice climbing festival happening in the next week or two in Michigan. So I'll get at you about the details on that.
All right. Maybe I can have somebody rope me up and pull me up.
That's what happened.
I don't think I'm ready for crampons yet.
No, it's fun. So.
All right, guys.
Thanks,
well, Chuck, thanks for co-hosting. Appreciate you being back. It's great to talk with you again. It's been a while. And Ian, thanks again for being here. I'm glad you survived your trip, and wish you both the best of luck in the future.
Thank you.
Sure.
All right. Hang loose, guys. All right, guys. Well, thanks for tuning in. Hope you guys enjoyed the conversation with Chuck and Ian. If you want to reach out to both of them, you can find them on Facebook. Just look them up, Chuck Earl and Ian Overton. This is the kind of conversation that makes me want to get out there and do something. I've been far too antsy lately. The article we've been discussing is 8 Things Nobody Tells You About Climbing a Mountain. It's by Jason Benson and Ian Overton. You can find it on crack.com. Just Google it up, people. It's actually a pretty incredible story, obviously. So, appreciate everybody tuning in. If you want to check us out, make sure you come on over to intellectualgentlemensclub.com. Take a gander at what we have to offer over there. Everything's available for free, of course. And if you want to support us, we have a support tab for that. I'll let you guys go out with a little bit of motivation. And then the final track today is going to be Begun, Shanghai. It's the Ambassadeurs remix. Till the next time, everyone, take care, gentlemen, and hang loose.
On March 18, 1923, explorer George Mallory was trying to raise funds for his 3rd attempt to climb Mount Everest, the highest mountain in the world. During this campaign, he was asked, "Why do you persist in these attempts to reach the top?" His response was, "Because it's there." Gazing into the vast stretches of the unknown, the unanswered, and the unfinished, what does mankind see? What he sees is a pathway of opportunity. To move forward, to go faster, to take flight, to look to the stars and beyond. To prove over and over again that no obstacle is greater than our greatest goals. It is not our nature to stay where we are, to wait, to rest. Today we set our goals high. We imagine the possibilities, possibilities that ignite our inspiration, inspire us to set goals that make us ask more of ourselves. Then we seek these goals with effort that cannot be postponed. This strength is not passed down from the leaders of nations. Rather, it is a natural response to ask more of ourselves and dream big. Because every one of us know and understand that our destiny is upward. Forever upward.
I never said I was a gentleman,
Actually-
motherfuckers.